I really believe that in order to take a great solo over a jazz standard, or really any song at all, that you need to understand how that song works. Like, yes, we need to be able to use our ears, and that's obviously the most important thing when it comes to being a jazz improviser. However, I believe that understanding how chord progressions work, how chords function in the context of the entire song, all of this is really important. And that's why I like to spend some time analyzing jazz standards, going over how they work, and really trying to dig deep inside of them. Because I believe if we have this mentality, if we have this knowledge, everything is going to be so much easier for us when it comes to actually composing in the moment, aka improvising. So today I'm going to be going over a very popular jazz standard, There Will Never Be Another You, and we're going to take a deep dive look into that and try to see what's going on with the harmony. Let's do this thing.
Welcome to the LJS podcast, where you get weekly jazz tips, interviews, stories, and advice for becoming a better jazz musician. And now your host. He's a jazz musician, author, and entrepreneur, Brent Vaartstra.
All right, everybody, what's up? Brent here from LearnJazzStandards.com, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Really excited you're here. Like I said, analyzing jazz standards is something that I think is really important if you want to become a great jazz improviser. In fact, I do have something called the Jazz Improv Rule, which simply states if you want to become a great jazz improviser, you have to understand jazz harmony. I really do believe that when you understand jazz harmony, how it works, how it functions, it's going to set you up for success in your jazz improvisation. Yes, this is more the left side brain sort of a situation rather than the right side brain. And as we learned back in episode 159 with our special guest Rodney Brim, who talked about brain hacking for speeding up your jazz improv success, yes, our right brain is something that we really need to exercise, right? Our ear, all this stuff that I commonly, regularly preach on this podcast. But without some of this more intellectual understanding, I also feel like we are basically, we're handicapped, and we need to make sure that we're not handicapped. So that's exactly why I'm going to be talking about this today. We're going to be going over the jazz standard, There Will Never Be Another You, which, by the way, is one of the standards that we are going to be studying in my new ebook that's going to be coming out hopefully at the end of May. An official date's not for sure yet. And that is the Jazz Standards Playbook, Volume 2. Many of you have the Jazz Standards Playbook Volume 1, where I go over 10 jazz standard studies, really deep dive into them. We have improv lessons and a bunch of learning resources for those. And many of you are also in the companion course for that. So special hello for those of you who are in that. But we are doing the Jazz Standards Playbook Volume 2. It's another set of 10 jazz standards. And man, it's been a lot of work, but me and the team are putting a lot of hours in to make this just the best resource possible for you. And one of those songs is There Will Never Be Another You. So it's completely appropriate that, hey, let's go over this one. Let's have a little sneak peek into what's going on here. So today I'm just going to be going over the chords analysis, which I provide in that book. And if you want to take a look at this with me, because I'm going to be, obviously this is a podcast, so you're going to be listening to this, but if you want to take a look at the chords analysis, which I also have color-coded, all kinds of good stuff on it, I'm going to have that available for free over on the show notes today. So that would be learnjazzstandards.com/episode 161. So learnjazzstandards.com/episode 161. I'm going to just, let you inside on that chords analysis, and that's exactly what I'm going to be explaining today. So if you want to look at that later or look at it while you're listening to this, that's available to you. However, if you're out and about right now, don't worry. You can just listen along, and I'll do my best to explain it audibly. Audibly. Is that the word I was looking for? We'll go with it. We'll go with it. All right. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Lots of other great stuff coming up here. And just happy to have you here. So let's jump right into this. All right, so just a few fun facts about There Will Never Be Another You before we get started into the analysis here. So There Will Never Be Another You was written by Harry Warren with lyrics by Max Gordon for the 1942 20th Century Fox musical Iceland. The original version features Joan Merrill as vocalist, accompanied by Sammy Kaye and his orchestra. So yes, that's the little bio of There Will Never Be Another You. So it has a 32-bar form, and it's kind of an A, B1, A, B2 form. So the A sections are identical, but the B sections that start on bar 9 and 25 are variations of each other. This song is most commonly called or most commonly played in the key of concert E flat major. That doesn't mean that it's the original key of the song. It's the key that if someone were to call it at a jam session or a gig, I almost guarantee you most of the time it's going to be in concert E flat major. So which key should you probably learn it in? Probably E flat major, and that's what we're going to be going over today. Is in E flat major. Now, if you're a transposing instrument, by the way, I want to say that if you're not a concert C instrument, just know that you would have to transpose this all to be in its original key. Now, for the Jazz Standards Playbook Volume 2, we have versions for all the different instruments, so it's not something to worry about. But when I'm talking right now, I'm just saying all this to say, when I'm talking right now and saying names of chords, this is all in concert key, so concert E flat major. So just to keep that in mind. All right, so let's take a look at this analysis here. Remember, if you want to follow along with me, the show notes, learnjazzstandards.com/episode 161. So the melody starts like this. Okay, let's start with that part there. So we start with E flat major 7. That's the tonic. That is the one chord, right? Because we're in concert E flat major. So, okay, then in bar 3, we do a 2-5 of 6. 2-5 of 6. This is where understanding secondary dominance and backdoor well, we're going to talk about backdoor dominance in this song too. Secondary dominance, super, super important to understand. So if you don't understand what a secondary dominant is, what I want you to do is I want you to go back to episode 121. Sorry, it took me a second to find it. Episode 121, Understanding Secondary and Backdoor Dominance. But I'm going to quickly explain what that is right there. So again, we start with an E flat major 7 for 2 bars, and then it goes D minor 7 flat 5 for 1 bar, G7, and then it resolves to a C minor 7. Now that D minor 7 flat 5, G7, I call that a 2-5 of 6, because in the key of concert E flat major, what is the 6th chord? It's C minor. C minor is the 6th chord. So this is what we call the relative minor, right? So E flat major and C minor. They share the same scale, all that same stuff, just starting on a different note, right? C minor is like Aeolian if we're thinking about it in the term of modes. So when we talk about secondary dominant, though, a secondary dominant is whenever a dominant 7th chord is targeting another diatonic chord in the series other than the tonic, so other than E flat major in this case, and making it sound like it's a new key center. So in this case, the secondary dominant is G7, okay? It's that 5 feeling, so it's the G7 feels like a 5 going to a 1 to C minor 7. So it almost sounds like we are in the key of C minor for a second here, but you have to understand the context of this. We are still, in general, in concert E flat major, right? C minor is still the 6th chord. However, a secondary dominant, and this is what we call a 2-5 secondary dominant, right? Because it's starting with the D minor 7 flat 5, which is obviously, now that's like this, you could think of that as the 7th chord in E flat major 7, but that's not really how it's functioning. It's functioning as a 2-5, so D minor 7 flat 5, G7, resolving to C minor 7. Right? So this is a secondary dominant chord progression here. We're targeting the 6th chord. Now, this happens all the time in jazz harmony. So if you didn't understand this before, really key into this. This is really important. Now, if you look at the chords analysis, if you're able to do that right now, I have the key of E flat major. Anything that I think is just definitely in the diatonic key center as far as the context of the chords, I have color-coded blue. So blue is the tonic parent key center, right? Now when we have the D minor 7 flat 5, G7, C minor 7, I have that color-coded red because I'm thinking about that. The color coding is really to show you that, hey, this is in the key of C minor. However, the Roman numerals say 2-5 of 6. and then underneath the C minor 7th chord, it says 6, right? So I want you to understand this in two different contexts. There's many different ways to understand jazz standards, to look at them. These are just two ways. The color coding is trying to patch things together into sections of different key centers, but at the same time with the Roman numerals, we need to understand how they relate back to the diatonic parent key, which is E flat major 7, right? Does that make sense? So E flat major 7, then D minor 7, G7. Now we're at C minor 7. That's a 2-5 of 6. Okay, that's A flat major 7. So what happened there? Okay, so bars 5 and 6 were still that C minor 7. Now, bar 7 goes to B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. Now, when we look at that, we think, well, how does that relate back to the parent key center? We have a B flat minor 7. That has nothing to do with E flat major 7, right? If anything, the B flat should be a dominant 7th chord, like the 5 chord. So immediately we're thinking, well, this doesn't have anything to do with the parent key center. So B flat minor 7, E flat 7. Okay, E flat 7, that's like the dominant one. So we can't think about these two chords as completely related to the parent key. So B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. Okay, so the key here is, what is A flat major 7? A flat major 7 is the 4 chord to E flat major, right? If we go through the diatonic series, A flat major, this is A flat major, is the 4 chord. So what does that make the B flat minor 7, E flat 7? That's a 2-5-1 in the key of A flat major 7. So therefore we have another secondary dominant 2-5. So it's a 2-5 of 4. 2-5 of 4. The E flat 7 being the secondary dominant, okay? So far we have two secondary dominants in a row targeting different diatonic chords other than the tonic, being E flat major, right? So 2-5 of 4. Again, one really great reason to study this song is this happens in many other jazz standards. So really important. So okay, that's the A flat major 7. What's that chord right there? That's in bar 10, if you're able to follow along with me. That's actually a D flat 7, although actually in the melody there's a sharp 11. That's a sharp 11 right there. Now, in the Roman numeral analysis, on the chords analysis, I call it, this is a complicated chord to understand, but really it's a backdoor dominant. So that goes back to that episode I was telling you to check out about secondary dominants and backdoor dominants. If you understand the secondary dominants and backdoor dominants, episode 121, this isn't so hard. But I have it labeled in the Roman numerals as a flat 7, a flat dominant 7. So in other words, if we're thinking about it in context of the parent key center, we have E flat major 7. A whole step down from that is D flat 7, right? So it's the flat dominant 7. But obviously we know that that's not really a real diatonic chord. You can also think of it in context to the A flat major 7, which is how I color-coded it. I color-coded the A flat major 7 key, so the 4 chord key, as green. And I included D flat 7 as that green because you can also just think of it in a term of blues. So A flat major 7, the 4 chord of A flat major 7 would be D flat major 7, except for it's a dominant 7, so it's the blues thing there. So, right? So it relates to the A flat major 7 to a degree, and this is how it relates to the E flat major 7. It's a backdoor dominant. So a backdoor dominant, the easiest way to think of a backdoor dominant, if you don't know what a backdoor dominant is it is a dominant 7th chord. It's a replacement chord for the 5 chord. What's the 5 chord in E flat major 7? It's B flat, right? It's that tension and resolution. So what we're doing is we're subbing it, this is what we call it a backdoor dominant, with a dominant 7th chord a whole step down from the tonic. So again, whole step down from E flat is D flat 7. So the reason that works, well, first of all, it's borrowing from what we call it parallel minor. The parallel minor, so parallel minor would be, instead of E flat major, it'd be E flat minor, right? So it's borrowing a chord from the minor diatonic series. So D flat 7 would be the 7, the flat 7, right? So that works there, but really how it works is it shares a bunch of these notes with the B flat 7, which is the 5 chord of E flat. I hope this doesn't sound like rocket science right now. It's not as complicated as it may sound. But so D flat 7 shares, I think the main thing to take away is D flat 7 shares a bunch of notes, especially altered notes, altered extensions and extensions of the B flat 7. So it sounds out to our ears, but there's just enough things going on where it makes sense. So let's start with the 2-5 to A flat major 7. So B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, D flat 7, really nice sounding chord, and then it resolves to the E flat major 7. So A flat major 7, D flat 7 to E flat major 7. So in a way, you hear it resolving, right? It's substituting that 5 chord. So that's a backdoor dominant there. Again, these backdoor dominants definitely come up time and time again in jazz harmony. All right, so that's where we're at right now. Okay, we just resolved to bar 11, which is the 1 chord, E flat major 7. So we're at... That's C minor 7. That's the 6th chord. I have this all color-coded in blue, by the way, because it's everything, all these next series of chord progressions is really relating to the parent key center. So, and then we have... So then we land on bar 13, an F7. Okay, now this is, again, something that happens all the time in jazz. Now, technically, this is also a secondary dominant. F7, if you think about it, that's kind of like the 5 of 5, right? The 5 being B flat 7 in E flat major. So F7 is like the 5 of B flat 7. Of course, the weird thing about the 5 of 5 secondary dominant is a dominant 7th chord, you never resolve to a dominant 7th chord unless it's the blues, right? The dominant 7th chords are almost always resolving to a minor chord or a major chord of some sort. That's just how that typically works. It's usually a dominant chord, a tension chord, right? A tension chord that needs to be resolved. So that's the weird thing about the 5 of 5. It's still technically a secondary dominant. But what happens in There Will Never Be Another You is we hang out on F7 for a while. Let's see. Then it goes to F minor 7, the 2 chord. So that's basically switches from a dominant 7 to its proper diatonic 2, F minor 7. Then to B flat 7. And then we start the new A section, the second A section again on the E flat major 7. So we're hanging out on the F7 for a while, and then F minor 7, B flat 7. So I'm going to start from the A flat major so you can hear it in time. Okay, so that would be how that sounds like in time. So it's really just landing on the F7, so it's the dominant 2 chord, then it transitions into a minor 2 chord, which is diatonically correct, so F minor 7, B flat 7, resolving to E flat major 7. Okay, does all this make sense so far? This is a great song for understanding typical diatonic harmony, but with some tricks and some surprises, the secondary dominants and the backdoor dominants and stuff like this. Okay, then bar 17, we start that next A section, and the melody is the same. Okay, there's the special part there, because everything up to this point was basically a repeat of the A section, and then the B section, but this is where the B section gets different. So we land on that A flat major 7, right? The D flat 7 or D flat 7 sharp 11 and the melody. And then E flat major 7. And then we have an A minor 7 flat 5 and D7. Right? Okay, so what's happening there? This is the important part. We have a 2-5 of 3 unresolved. So what's the 3 chord in E flat major 7? What's the 3 chord? 3 chord is G minor, right? Okay? So the 2-5 of G minor is what? It's A minor 7 flat 5, D7 flat 9. A minor 7 flat 5, D7 flat 9. However, this is unresolved. So it fits really great with the melody, right? You could hear that. Right? It sounds good. But the weird thing is it doesn't resolve to the G minor 7. It resolves to the E flat major 7. So it goes... Okay, and then it does this big long turnaround. Right, does this big long turnaround to end the song. So why doesn't it resolve to the G minor 7? A minor 7 flat 5, D7 flat 9, to an E flat major 7? Well, the important thing to understand is that the 3 chord can be a substitute for the tonic. Why can it be a substitute for the tonic? Because it shares 2 notes in common. I mean, so it has these common notes involved with them. So it's a good substitute for the tonic. So normally you're thinking about, okay, well, the 3 chord could substitute for the tonic. So why doesn't it just start with G, like bar 29, where it's just this big turnaround? Why doesn't it start with G minor 7? Well, there's a reason, because it wants to cycle in fourths. That's the first reason. But basically, it's doing the opposite of that. So it's basically saying, okay, great, I'm going to make you feel like it's going to resolve to the G minor 7. However, since we can substitute a G minor 7 for an E flat major 7, let's just substitute the E flat major 7 for the G minor 7. Does that make sense? So why not, right? So instead of going to the G minor 7 to substitute the tonic, we're going to go and substitute the G minor 7 for the tonic, E flat major 7. So this is just a great compositional tool that you will also see in other jazz standards as well. Again, another great reason to study There'll Never Be Another You. This stuff is not unique to this song. It happens over and over and over again. Okay, so that's a 2-5 of 3, an unresolved 2-5 of 3 that resolves to the tonic in bar 29. Bar 29, oh, by the way, I had that color-coded purple, if you're able to look at the chart. The reason I have it color-coded purple is because I want you to think G minor 7. Not that we are in G minor 7. In fact, it's only 1 bar and doesn't even resolve to G minor 7. But again, when you're studying jazz standards, it's all about context, okay? Understanding, in this particular jazz standard, how it relates back to the parent key, also what exactly is happening there, what other relationships can we draw. In this case, we can think about that quick chord progression in G minor. Okay, so to finish off the song, the melody goes... Okay, so what are the chords behind that, which are beautiful? It's just, very classic. So it's da 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 da, way out of my key. Okay, so it's E flat major 7, A flat 7. So it's the dominant 4. Dominant 4. Again, that's that bluesy thing there, that little bluesy thing. G minor 7, that's a 3 chord. C7, that is the 6, the dominant 6, which what is that? That's a secondary dominant. It's the 5 of 2 because resolving to a F minor 7, which is the 2, 5, 1. So we have E flat major 7, A flat 7, G minor 7, C7, that secondary dominant, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. So mostly it's cycling in fourths, right? E flat to A flat, that's a fourth, except for right here. Half step down to G minor 7. That's the only part where this is not cycling in fourths. E flat major 7, A flat 7, G minor 7, C7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7. This is a very common turnaround to end a song. So E flat major 7, that's 1, 6, 3, 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Very common turnaround, and that's how it ends the song. Okay, so what are the big takeaways with There'll Never Be Another You as far as the analysis goes? We're not even really talking about the melody. We're not really talking about how to improvise over any of that stuff right now. But what are the big takeaways? It's all based around the parent key center of E flat major. Okay, really almost everything in this song easily relates to E flat major. That's not true of all jazz standards, but this one does. We have a series of secondary dominant chord progressions, 2-5-1 secondary dominants, right? At the very beginning of the song, we have that D minor 7 flat 5, G7, C minor 7. So that's really just the 6th chord, but the 2 and the 5 clearly seem to allude to the fact that it almost makes the listener feel like we're in C minor now, although we're not. We're still in E flat major 7. That's secondary dominant, right? We also have that happening targeting the 4 chord, A flat major 7, right? With the B flat minor 7, E flat 7, right? Then we have the backdoor dominant. That's another big takeaway from this. We have the backdoor dominant, which happens in bar 10 with the D flat 7. So it's important to understand how that D flat 7 can relate to the A flat major 7 and also does relate to the E flat major 7 as a substitute 5 chord to resolve to the E flat major 7. Okay? Those are the big takeaways, I would say, harmonically from this song. If you know There Will Never Be Another You, you know... I don't want to just make up a number. I don't want to say hundreds, but you probably know at least another 100 jazz standards just by knowing their number. You know what I mean? Like, as far as just this harmony will come up time and time again. Not necessarily that the chords are exactly the same, but if you understand the concepts, right? The jazz improv rule. If in order to become a better jazz improviser, you need to understand jazz harmony. If you understand jazz harmony, you understand what secondary dominants are. You've seen before a 2-5-1 to the 4 chord. If you've seen a 2-5 to the 6 chord, wow, you're seeing it all. If you see a dominant 2 chord hanging out for 2 bars that turns into a minor 2 chord, that happens all the time in jazz standards, okay? So if you know these things, you know many other tunes in essence, right? As long as you know the melody and you got your ears on, you can learn so many other jazz standards. And that's why I do these books like the Jazz Standards Playbook Volume 1. That's why we're in the middle, getting close to finishing the Jazz Standards Playbook Volume 2, because these are great teaching tools. Let the jazz standards teach you how to play. That's why our website is called learnjazzstandards.com, because no matter what style of music you want to play, no matter if you even want to write your own tunes, any of this stuff, if you want to understand jazz in its tradition, which is important to study any music's tradition, right? If you want to understand just harmony in general, look at jazz standards, because all of that information is there. You can learn so much about music just by studying these standards. All right, that's all for this one today. Thanks for listening, everybody. And hey, I want to get a little bit of your feedback, if you don't mind. I've hesitated in the past doing these kinds of episodes where I'm analyzing jazz standards just because there's so much of a visual element to it. So typically I've done these on our YouTube channel and not on the podcast, but I've always wanted to do it on the podcast. So let me know how this went for you today. Was it just really confusing, hard to understand, or were you able to go to the show notes? Hey, just feel free to give me a little feedback. Just on the show notes today, feel free to, let me know what you thought. Do you want me to do more of these episodes? Are you sort of like, let's leave it for the YouTube channel? Just let me know. You won't hurt my feelings. Just be nice about it, obviously. I appreciate that. It just helps me know how I can serve you better, how I can create great content for you to help you in your journey as a jazz musician. That's why I do this. So let me know, give me your feedback. And hey, by the way, if you just enjoy, you've heard me say this all the time if you listen to this podcast regularly, if you enjoy this podcast, if you get great value out of it, the only thing I ask in return is that you go to iTunes or your favorite podcast listening service, leave a 5-star rating and review, and just tell other people why you like it. That's really a big help to me, is just to do that. So thanks for just, if you thought about doing this for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, and you hear me saying it and you just never have quite done it, now's the time. Go ahead, give me that nice feedback on iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just really helps out. And also, hey, even better than that, if you think that this episode or any other episode I've come out with can help someone else that you know, and you think that they need to get cued into what this podcast is all about, share it. Share it with them. Send them an email. Send it to them on Facebook. Whatever. Just share it, right? Don't keep this stuff to yourself. If you think other people can get some help, please share. I really do appreciate that a ton. All right, guys, ladies, gentlemen. All right, I'm going to stop this. I'll see you guys next week on the podcast. Really excited. We're going to have we have some special guests coming up that you're not going to want to miss. So, all right, stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the LJS podcast, brought to you by LearnJazzStandards.com. Subscribe to the series on iTunes, and don't forget to join our jazz community at LearnJazzStandards.com/newsletter.